hope you can hear me. If you have any technical difficulties throughout, just send us a message and we'll be sure to make sure that we're speaking up and you can hear us loud enough. My name's Haley. I'm a community engagement intern here at Tablespace. We're super excited to have you all here, both in person and virtually. We have Lee here to speak to us a little bit more about finances, and I think he'll give a bit of better intro to the workshop than I will. But if you have any questions throughout, just raise your hand on Zoom or send us a message or Instagram, and we'll be sure to forward your questions on to Lee. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Haley. So just to let you guys know, and to everyone know virtually, this is a 5-part workshop, so I believe we're going to be doing one once a month. And so the first topic of today is basically increasing cash flow and debt management. And when we look at that situation, a lot of people, here in Canada, just give you some statistics that I shared with last time. 70% of Canadians today live paycheck to paycheck. And, Canada itself is in, trillions of dollars in debt. And, I will share some statistics on that for every single person. But when you look at this particular situation, it's ironic that we live in one of the wealthiest countries in the world, but many people still have money problems, right? So I'm going to go ahead and kind of just show you a disclaimer real quick. So this, all right. So this information should not be interpreted as accounting, investment, legal, or tax advice. This is strictly for educational purposes only. So what you take from this information, use it wisely and use it to your own interpretation of it, right? So the biggest thing, like I said, this is workshop 1. And we just want to congratulate everyone for taking that initiative to making sure that, they take charge of their finances. Because what I personally believe in and what we strongly believe in is that, no one will care more about your finances, not your boss, not the government, not, anyone else outside of yourself. So we really believe in self-empowerment of you learning this information so you can apply it to yourself, right? So let's look at the first part. So our mission, we started this campaign in 2015. We pretty much hit that goal in 2020, so we're actually looking for a different mission now, right? But it just starts there. It really, from Canada and US wide, we're really trying to build that vision of people understanding how to manage their own money. So if we look at the first part, the first thing I want everyone either on Zoom or in person right now here, I want everyone to ask themselves this personal question. You don't need to answer it out loud, but I want you guys to really look at, where would you like to be in the next 5 years? Financially, career-wise, and that's the biggest thing that we have to really look at. The next question after that, what will your net worth be? Okay, what will your retirement look like? What is your plan to achieve these goals? So the biggest thing that I understood, being in the industry for 10 years now, is that if you don't have a goal, if you don't even have it written down, it's never going to happen, right? So you have to ask yourself, I really want to just make sure that I pay off my debt. And, you have to have a time frame for that. You have to set a date, because if you never plan for it, it's never going to happen, like I said. So take some time to review and continue to fill out your financial goals worksheet. So, whether it's a scrap piece of paper or you have the workbook with you. So like I said, workshop increasing your cash flow, turning spenders into educated savers. Okay. So let's look at the first slide. What you'll learn today specifically is discover 100 or more that you didn't know you had. Find out where your money is going. Build a real plan to be debt-free faster. How to increase your cash flow when it comes to, earning money. And we know that money isn't the greatest asset, but applied knowledge is, right? So let's look. There's only really 2 ways to increase your cash flow. Number 1, earn more, which is pretty common sense, right? And number 2, spend less, right? Also pretty common sense, but I promise you I'll dive deep into these 2 particular subjects. So it isn't about how much money you make, but how much money you keep, right? So again, like I said, just to give you guys a little background again, I've been in the industry for 10 years now, and I've seen countless people where their income increases, but their lifestyle increases. And then they increase it again, and then the lifestyle increases. So I see people that make, 6 figures or 100,000 plus a year, but they're 6 figures in debt. right? And at the end of the day, think of it in this perspective. The person that makes, let's say, $150,000 a year but saves $0 versus the person that makes $50,000 a year but saves $10,000. Which do you think is better off? You know, because if that person loses their job that makes 150, they're left with nothing, right? So really understand that aspect. So I really want, if you guys have a notebook in front of you, really do this exercise really quickly. So put two bubbles beside each other. First bubble is A, second bubble is B. So in that bubble, I just want you to really copy the screen. You know, put that part where it says save, and then spend. And the reason why I'm sharing this with you is because here's what we're teaching you how to do today, which is save the money first and then spend whatever's left. What most people do, unfortunately, is do this, spend, and then attempt to save back. So when you think about it, when you guys get a paycheck, or when everyone gets a paycheck in this particular situation, I think someone's trying to just see it right now. Oh, you got it. Okay. So when you look at this particular situation, when you get a paycheck, who's the first person that takes the money? What would you guys say? Like in this room, when you guys get a paycheck, who takes the money first?
Government.
Government, exactly, because taxes. And then next, most people spend it and pay their bills and all that stuff, and then they spend groceries and everything else after. And whatever's left after, that's what they attempt to save. But unfortunately, most people don't even have money left over. That makes sense? So when we have an income, what we want to do is invest, save/access, and grow it over time to have that wealth. Now, in terms of the second aspect, this is what most people do. So saving over time will eventually make you become wealthy, and then spending, if you consistently do bubble B all the time, this is what's going to happen to you, unfortunately, in the future, right? So let's look at what we should do first. And again, when I talk about save first, so obviously you can't do anything about the government, right, legally, right? So, the biggest thing is what we want to do is we want to save that first part of that paycheck first. So make your first payment to your family, children, and future, and then spend what's left. So let me explain this concept really quickly. I know this seems common sense, but common sense isn't very common. So let's look at this in this perspective, okay? When you don't pay your electricity bill for the first month, what happens? You get a warning, right? Second month, maybe another warning. Third month, final warning. But if you continue to stop paying your electricity bill over the next couple months or even a year, what happens to the power? Shuts down.
Yeah.
Now, I want you guys to understand saving for your future as a family financial bill to your family, okay? Because look at the perspective. If you don't save this month, you don't feel it, right? Next month, you're okay, whatever, I didn't save. The month after, you didn't save. Month after, you didn't save. But 20 years from now, 30 years from now, 40 years from now, when you're 65, you're going to be like, power's out. I don't have any money for my retirement. That makes sense? So really understand that this treats your savings like a bill that you have to pay. It's ironic because most people, when they think about, trying to save $500 a month, they're like, Lee, that's hard. But when they think about a car payment that's $500 a month, most people are like, that's pretty easy. Does that make sense? Right? And that's what we're trying to teach people. Yeah, go ahead.
So based on what percentage of your salary or what percentage of what you make each month should you try to put away?
That's a good question, right? And I will answer it right now, but I'll also say on the slide, it's minimum you need to save at least 10% of your income.
Okay.
Net income, so meaning after taxes, 10% of what you get paid. Make sense? So definitely a good question, but that key word that I said there, minimum, meaning you can always save more if you want to. Okay? So let's find ways to save more and spend less. So a lot of people always ask me, but Lee, I live paycheck to paycheck. Like I told everyone in this room, 70% of Canadians live paycheck to paycheck. And by the way, I told you guys before, but that's pre-COVID percentages, right? So when we look at finding ways to save more and spend less, let's look at this. I want everyone to either do their own, but this is a worksheet that you can draw out on for yourself or just an exercise. But did I spend wisely today? So the amounts I spent today, so myself and Dan, we went to Starbucks. right? And I was like, man, we should have definitely just brought coffee from home. And I look at that, that's like, Starbucks is roughly, $6 per drink. And if you do that consistently every single day, so I know it's lunchtime right now, but look at all the things you spent for so far, so like up till now to this point, right? And then really tally it up. Am I able to, if I use credit cards, am I able to pay it in full right away, right? If not, so there's there's a quote that Jay-Z always says, if you can't buy 2 of them, you can't afford it, right? So have I saved 10% of this month's income yet, right? And if so, if you've already saved, rewards are okay if I pay in cash. So at the end of the day, what I'm going to be sharing today in this workshop is cash is king, right? Do not use as much as possible. Obviously, you can build your credit score, but as much as possible, do not get into debt. But if you are in debt, we'll show you how to get out of it very, very soon. So that's the step 2. After writing down all your expenses, so here's for everyone here today. This is homework for you guys. Look at your checking account and tally up all the things that you spent that weren't necessary. I promise you, you'll be surprised. Okay, I had one client that we tallied it up, or this is a story of a client in our firm, and he tallied up all of his expenses, and he was like, I live paycheck to paycheck, and then we looked at 1 month's income and where all the expenses went, and he spent $900 at this place called Buffalo Wild Wings. Right, in that month, and then he was like, "There's no way I spent $900 on wings." But when you tally it up, it ended up happening, and that's why he lived paycheck to paycheck. So that's the first thing. Number 1, tally up your expenses. Number 2, let's look at what you can potentially save on. So increase federal and provincial tax refunds, decrease your deductions, puts more in your monthly check. So check with your HR payroll department. So that's one way you can save money. Next one, eliminate or reduce premium cable satellite services. You guys don't even know how many times I sit down with a family and they're still paying for cable, but the only thing I see them watching on a daily basis is YouTube. YouTube, Netflix, all that stuff, but they're still paying for, let's say, NTS, Shaw Cable, all that stuff. And there's nothing wrong with that if you use it, but most of the time, in a standard family, the one wife told me, hey, I pay for cable, for the cable TV to watch my husband because he turns it on and he falls asleep on the couch. Right? So I look at that situation, that's something you can save on. Consider larger deductibles on your auto, RV, homeowners, collision insurance policies. So look into increasing your deductibles and see if it makes sense on a yearly basis. So if your deductible is currently only $500, see how much you could save if you change it to $1,000, right? Now, reduce the number, and I just said this earlier, reduce the number of lattes, alcohol, and cigarettes each month. Right? You look at it in a long-term perspective, and I promise you'll see the compounding interest over time that if you save on this amount of money, you'll see. Now, cancel or reduce extras on your cell phone. Data features, corporate discounts. So if you find yourself, you're always in a Wi-Fi zone, like on your daily living, where it's school, work, and home, I encourage you to really look at your cell phone plan. When I first got a cell phone, this ages us a bit, but when I first got a cell phone, the monthly payment for that cell phone was like $20 a month. Now I want everyone to really look at how much is an average cell phone plan today per month. What would you guys say?
70.
Yeah, $70,
$80. Before, if someone heard that $70, $80, they would have thought you were crazy, right? But $20, obviously you can't find that now, but I'm just saying, if you don't end up using your data, if you're in a Wi-Fi spot, then technically you can save on your monthly phone bill. Make sense? Now, if you own a cell phone, why keep the old landline? Again, I sit down with so many clients of mine, and I see them, and I tell them, okay, realistically, who calls you on your landline if you have a cell phone? And they said, they only telemarketers, or those situations. I tell them, hey, you can save on that too. Cancel or lower accidental and dismemberment policies. So just to give you guys some disclaimer on this really quickly, those things that the banks call you and say, hey, you're pre-approved for $5 million accidental death policies. Do the research, that actually doesn't cover you for a lot. And you have to die by accident and you're paying $5 a month, right? The chances of that actually paying out is very, very low. So credit and auto appliances, cycles, trailer, items you finance, eat out early. If you choose to eat out, choose happy hour meals, right? And a lot of people will tell me, Haley, this is kind of extreme for some of these things. But I said, look, at the end of the day, if you have a lot of debt and you want to get out of it, you have to take extreme measures to get out of it. Makes sense? If you're actually serious about doing those things. Now, reevaluate your home and auto insurance. If you're a homeowner, really look at, hey, what's the cheapest possible plan? So bring your own lunch 2 to 3 days per week. You know, there's this generation before, the current generations, millennials, Gen Z, X and all that stuff. There is a generation called the baby boomers. My parents and some other people's parents, where if you asked them how many times they ate out per week, they probably would have told you like almost 0, right? Because they always brought their lunch to work, right? And and there's nothing against this. Again, I'm not trying to offend anyone, but realistically, if you buy avocado toast every day, right, that's going to cost you a lot of money, right? And the cost of making avocado toast at home is literally $2 if you do the math behind it. But how much they charge you at restaurants? $11, right? So cancel gym memberships you don't use. So I was, myself and Adeline were notorious for this, right? We got a gym. So after, we used to go to the gym a lot, but during COVID, we couldn't, and now we're just paying for it, and we haven't been to the gym since. We donate to the gym, right? We donate. So I look at the gyms like I donated that weight, right? Because I'm paying for it, but I'm not using the facilities. So stuff like that, right? Find alternative ways to exercise. Cancel magazine subscriptions or automatic renewals. So those things that you sign up for the 7-day free trial or the 1-month free trial, and you forget to cancel it, and you're too lazy to look at your app store to cancel it. That's what you should do. Organize errands, carpools with others. Do your own chores. Keep a warmer, cooler house. Use coupons for groceries and dining out. Business tax deduction. So this is a really big thing, especially if you're a self-employed person. Consider buying used cars. Play free video games. Cut down on online subscriptions. Avoid ATM fees. This is a big thing that I see every single day. The average ATM, if you're not a student, or checking account service fee is roughly $14, $15 standard across all the major banks, right? So you're literally paying $15 a month pretty much since you started that account. So why not use free accounts to do the same thing, just to let you guys know. So I'm not sponsored by these people or anything. I'm just saying that, for example, Simply Financial, they're a subsidiary of CIBC, but they charge nothing for the exact same bank account, right? Or Tangerine or whatever. And, you look at that perspective and they say, man, like $15 may not seem like a lot, but if you realistically put it in a 20-year time frame, that is a lot of money, right? Now, reduce gas parking costs. Save by carpooling, walking, bike, or taking public transport. Cut down on shopping, clothes, and gadgets. And be creative. Refrain from overspending on gifts, right? Now, take a moment to add up your total, right? Most people that I go through this exercise, most people can save roughly $100, okay? Now, let's look at that difference of $100 to me. So the bottom line is wants versus needs. Cash flow is a decision, right? From the previous exercise, what is the potential monthly amount that you can save and apply to your debt? So let's look, okay? What is the cost of wasting $6.60 a day that could be growing at 10% interest annually? So let's do this math. In 10 years, if you save $6.60 a day and you put it in towards an investment growing at 10% instead, that can get you $42,000 in investment, $6.60 a day. 20 years, that's $151,000. 30 years, that's $434,000. Right? How easy is it to spend $6.60, by the way, on a daily basis?
Very easy.
Very, very, very easy. Now, how hard is it to save $6.60? Right? A little bit harder. So it's just a mindset shift where people can actually do this if they choose to. Now, determine where your money is going. Is what you're bringing in more what is going out, or vice versa? So basically, I know this is very simple and common sense, but let's really look at it. How many people do you know actually take the time to look at, okay, this is the monthly cash flow coming in, and this is my total expenses I have at the end of the month. So are you at a surplus or are you at a deficit, right? And complete the monthly cost of living worksheet. So really, at the end of the day, just really look at that perspective. Like, are you actually doing your best to do those things. Now the next thing is asset, liability, and net worth. If we want to win at the financial game, we need to know the rules and language. So what is an asset? Can anyone actually in the crowd, or what would you guys say an asset is, if you had to think of one?
It's like,
She's an
she's going into accounting, so I'm looking at her. But like a house, like asset, it could be like a house, for example.
Sure, yeah. Anything else? What would you guys say?
Anything that's liquid, so like cash, investments,
Things you have that have a value to them.
Yeah, exactly. So something that has monetary value. Exactly. Now, next question for everyone here is, what is a liability?
Something that you owe.
So would you guys say a car is a liability?
Well, if you're paying it off, then yeah.
Yes, exactly. So a claim on your assets, so a claim on your money, right? So what is your net worth? It's obviously assets minus the liabilities. So, I saw this situation where most people's net worth is negative for most of their life, which is, realistically that sucks. But, what we're trying to do is make sure this point is understood. So let's assets, you'll see like all these things over here, and then the liabilities. Now, food for thought, simply put, this is, the best way someone can actually describe asset is this sentence right here: something that puts money in your pocket, right? So if you look at, for example, investments and they earn interest, that puts money in your pocket, right? When you look at liabilities, it's something that takes money out of your pocket. So when you buy a house, what would you say that's asset or liability? Based on these two things. Liability. But it's actually also, it's kind of like a hybrid of the both. At the end of the day, it's a liability if you do the math and you still lose money at the end of the day, right? Now, when you look at the situation, so the rich buy assets, the middle class buy liabilities, which they think are assets, right? They're like, oh yeah, we buy this new car, blah, 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 buy this, buy that, and they think that it's going to get them better in their situation, but it actually puts them in a bigger hole. So what do you think? Is a new car an asset or liability? What about you guys right now? What would you think? Is a new car an asset or a liability?
For me, it would be liability.
Yeah, absolutely, right? And the reason why is like if you buy a brand new car, let's say an average car today is $40,000. The moment you sign the papers, put the key in and drive it out of the lot, and just lost $10,000 in value, right? If you're like, oh, I changed my mind, you tried to sell it back to them, they're gonna buy it for you $10,000 less. So you literally lost money immediately. What about house? I just asked this. So can we reduce our liabilities and cut down our debt? Really, that's the question, the main message behind what I'm trying to share in this presentation. So with commitment and discipline, you can get out of debt. I promise you that, because myself and Dan, just to kind of give you guys a little story, not too long ago, maybe like 5-6 years ago, we were in a situation that we were actually struggling a little bit, right, in terms of our finances. And when we did this exercise for ourselves, we understood that, okay, if we really, really genuinely want to get out of debt, we actually have to follow these particular aspects, okay? Make sense? Now, imagine, do you think if people understood liabilities where they would have less debt? Absolutely. So living debt-free is less stressful way to live. And remember, a time when you had no debt or payments and how much simpler life was. So at some point in someone's life, they had no debt at all. No mortgage, no car loan, no credit card, no student loan. So really remember that feeling. And most people is like, Lee, that's when I was born, right? So I can't really remember that. But when you look at that situation, most people get into debt immediately, right? And what if you could use your income for building up financial freedom? How much better would life look and feel with no financial liabilities? So I really want everyone to picture this for a second. Let's say you have a paid up house, paid up car, no debt to anyone or any institution, and every monthly, anything that's coming in on a monthly basis is yours. Really imagine that feeling, right? So what would it feel like for you? Like you don't need to answer, but I just want you to imagine that for a second. Literally paid off home, paid off car, and everything there. Now, credit card debt, right? That's one of the biggest debts that we have here in Canada. So as banks make billions in profits, the average Canadian is more debt than ever. Again, this was pre-COVID. So as of start of 2017, 3 years back, there was $2 trillion in consumer debt, including mortgages. $2 trillion. Now, the average Canadian carries an average debt load of over 22,000 month after month, not including any mortgages, meaning they continue to have 22,000, and that 22,000 never depletes. They just, pay the minimum, and that's what's happening to most people. So aren't we all tired of paying interest to someone else, right? So that's good. Make a plan to live debt-free. Live within your means and not increase your debt. Understand how credit card works. So annual percentage, minimum payments. Don't apply for more credit, freeze them. So we have this little joke with before we actually did doing something differently. We used to take credit cards and we actually froze them in a block of ice cube because we told the person, hey, how serious are you about paying off your debt? They was like, we have an absolute dead serious. So they actually, one of the advisors took it and actually froze it in their freezer so they couldn't use it. But the problem is that person memorized the numbers, so they actually used it for online purchases, right? But no, just joking aside, so build a habit of using cash, debit, or prepaid credit cards. So work towards not carrying a balance at all, right? So rules of credit. I'm gonna ask everyone in this room, what's a credit line? So a credit card, credit line, and all that stuff, line of credit is paid off. Is it a good idea to close that account? What would you guys say?
Well, I did because I wasn't good with it.
Okay, yes.
So it was doing more harm than I was good.
Mhm.
But I have other lines of credit that build my credit.
Absolutely. So that's a good answer. Yeah. And the answer is, it's subjective, but right now it's false if you don't have anything else, like you just said. So the reason why is we don't recommend closing all your cards or all your credit lines because they're important to establish a credit score here in Canada. Okay? So if you have one, do not close it. If you have multiple, then close it, obviously, based on your habits. Now, a higher credit score may help you receive better lending terms if you do actually need to lend money, right? Let's say for a mortgage and all that other stuff, or a car loan if you do end up buying a car. So what do you know about your credit? Learn more with your free credit report. So these are 2 websites you guys can get. And there's a 3rd website that I found is called Credit Karma. Credit Karma, Equifax, and TransUnion. You can figure out if you can have a good credit score or not. A good credit score, in my opinion, is roughly in the 700s, right? Average is 600s, but yeah, go ahead.
How do you check? That's how you would check.
Yeah, so you go to these free websites and they give you a free credit report.
Oh, so you can't if you ask that from your bank, are they gonna charge you? I'm confused.
So what happens when you go at the bank? In order for them to check your credit score, you're basically applying for credit.
Oh.
So here they don't really affect your credit score. So before you even go to the bank, you can see if you can get approved or not, depending on what you're trying to do. Right? So you can basically not waste time by going to the bank directly. Make sense? So Credit Karma, Equifax, or TransUnion is one of those 3 things. Now, are you a creature of habit? So this is a test for everyone in this room right now, or on Zoom, or Instagram, for those who's watching. So clasp your hands together. Go like this. Which hand is on top?
Left.
Left? Left? So
Left.
Left. I want everyone to try clasp their right hand over the left hand instead. How weird does that feel?
Oh yeah.
Right? So now, next thing. Cross your arms. So cross your arms right now. And try crossing it the other way now. Some people can't even do it.
That's so weird.
So, and I promise there's a point to this. And ladies, which side of your mouth do you apply the lipstick? Left to right or right to left?
Left to right.
Right?
I do. Well, with my right.
Right? And, or chapstick, whatever, right? I saw in the middle. So, and then men, which side of your face do you start shaking, right? And the reason why I'm sharing this with everyone, because, human nature is that we do things over and over again because it's a habit. It ends up being a habit over time. But now, can we ask ourselves, the reason why we get into so much debt, because some point in our life, we started creating this habit of, oh, I'll pay this later, I'll pay this later, I'll pay this later. right? But if we continue to do that over and over again, eventually we can change that habit. Now, let's look at credit cards and how it works. Again, this is very important for everyone that has a credit card and does owe money on it. So for example, if we owe $5,000 on a credit card, average credit card interest rate, annual percentage rate is 19.99%. So the minimum payment the banks calculate for most people is 3.5% of the entire balance. So 3.5% of 5,000 is $175. But do you think this 175 is going directly to this 5,000? Definitely not. So let's look at the math here. Out of $175, 83 is paid towards interest only, and 92 is actually going towards the $5,000 of debt. So if you look at it, virtually half is going to interest. So you're using a credit card to pay double what you actually borrowed. Does that make sense? So only paying the minimum, you'll pay $3,739 in interest, and it will take you 107 months to pay it off. That's 9 years, right? So what is costing you to be in debt? So the real cost of debt, if you, let's say for example, imagine investing that, let's say you had 5,000 and you continue to invest what you have paid the first year in annual percentage rate, 996, so that's what it costs to service that debt. And in the 8% tax deferred account for 30 years, that will give you $172,000, right? So just one example of how the rich get richer and the poor stay the same. And, debt roll up. So now, obviously since this point, I've been talking about common sense and common practices, but the next thing I'm going to talk about is actually a real life client scenario, and to show you guys, what certain strategies can help you pay off your debt in a fast way without going to the bank and finding any product there, okay? So let's look at that roll-up. If a person is really in a tough position, can't get out, there may be a need to explore debt counseling services, but is there another way? So debt roll-up or snowball method is a systematic approach of paying more than the minimum. As soon as the first balance is paid off, the freed up payment amount is used to pay down the next debt even faster. So two approaches, which one to attack first? Highest interest first saves the most money. Smallest balance first pays a little more in interest but has the greatest emotional satisfaction. So you guys can search it up, that roll up, or they call it avalanche or roll up all the time. That doesn't matter which one you choose. But there was a study shown that once someone pays off one debt, they're more likely to pay off the next one and the next one and the next one and the next one, versus trying to pay off the high interest one first, right? Now let's look at what we can do. So like most rewarding achievements, paying off the debt takes commitment and discipline. So let's look at the example, okay? So what is the effect of a repayment schedule? So first, before we can understand how to pay it off, let's look at, we have to list down what we owe. So the home in this particular situation, this person had a $158,400 interest rate, this is back in the day at the time was 6.75. Monthly payment was $1,038. Over there was their monthly payments. So you can see their total balance owing towards the banks, institutions and all that stuff was $225,000. You can tell this is old because you see Sears there, right? $225,000. Their monthly payment on all their debt was $2,184. Number of payments it took, and here's what was the craziest part. They borrowed $225,000 from the bank, but after finished paying it off, they actually ended up paying $472,000 because of interest, right? So now let's look at what we can achieve with just a simple concept of $100, okay? So again, their minimum monthly payment was $2,184, and it was going to take them 29 years to pay everything off so far, right? So let's remember that sheet I told you guys to really kind of jot down, okay, how much can I save on a monthly basis? And if it ended up being 100, let's pretend we can take that 100 and apply it to the lowest balance first. So how much did we own the Home Depot? $150, right? The minimum payment for that was $10. So what we did was we took this $10 and added that $100 that we found in our budget, right? And it ended up becoming $110. So meaning instead of, if we only paid minimum 18 months to pay, it was 1.4 months. Pretty straightforward. But once we finish paying off the Home Depot, we target the next lowest balance first, which is ESSO, right? Their ESSO credit card. So 25 was the minimum payment towards that. Now we take that 110, add it to that 25, it becomes 135. So instead of 26 payments, it's that done in 5.3 payments. Next was Sears. Minimum payment also was 25. Now we take that freed up 135 because these two are gone. Does that make sense so far? Now that 135 equals to 160. There's 37 payments, ends up being 9.4. Then so on and so on and so on. But here's the result. Okay? With that extra $100 that someone was able to find in their budget, before it was going to take them 29 years to pay off all their debt. Now it's only going to take them 12.3 years. With that $100. Okay? And a lot of people, you know, when I did this thing last time with one of my clients, they said, Lee, what's $100 realistically going to do for me? I owe this much. I said, look, it can actually do a lot for you if you do plan it properly and you budget properly. Because look, which scenario would you guys rather be in? 29 years to pay or 12.3 years to pay? Right? Imagine this person can be completely debt-free, even mortgage-free and car loan-free in 12.3 years. That makes sense? So when we look at it, here's the difference. The debt was exactly the same. We didn't go to the bank, we didn't take any financial product from anywhere, but all we did was, you know, it was exactly the same, but their monthly payment went from $2,184 to $2,284 now. Right? The real debt that they had before so they borrowed this much from the bank, this is how much they paid. If they follow this debt roll-up strategy, this is how much they pay. Right? So obviously you can't get away with interest if you owe money, but you know, the biggest thing for me out of all these things is this. It's time. Because you just essentially caught, let's call it 20 years of your life being stress-free about your finances. Make sense? Now, what's the difference? Just an additional 100, you see, like with just that additional 100, you see the difference in that perspective. What about if you had an extra $200 or $300, right? So write down your current debt accounts. So this is homework for you guys. And begin to think about your own debt roll-up strategy, okay? So the next thing that I'm gonna talk about is reasons for an emergency fund. But did you guys, before I move on to the next part, do you guys have any questions on this aspect? Pretty straightforward and explanatory, right? Now, if we go on to the next part, reasons for an emergency fund, no matter how much you plan in life, the unexpected happens. So to prepare for life's little disasters, set up an emergency fund. So for example, flat tire, speeding ticket, your car breaks down, you know, appliances at your home, all that stuff, you got laid off from your job, and this is very relevant to a lot of people, right? You know, I talked to some people before, and they said, Lee, my job is guaranteed, right? I don't really like think about saving as much. And when you look at it, it's like, you know, that some people actually got laid off, right? So you never know what's gonna happen. You know, even in terms of, you know, unfortunately here in Canada, healthcare is paid for, right? But one thing a lot of people forget is if they get sick, so heart attack, stroke, cancer, and they survive, can they go back to work right away? What would you guys say? Definitely not. So when you can't go back to work, what happens is you're on either EI or disability. So that means you only have 60% of your income. That means 40% of your income has disappeared. Does that make sense? So think about it this realistically. If you guys have a job right now, if you guys make income, imagine getting a 40% pay cut, right? For 6 months to even a year to get better, right? So that's why this one is really, really important. So having an extra source of funds can give your family peace of mind during a stressful time. So here's the basic rule of thumb. A lot of people ask me, hey Lee, how much emergency fund do I need to have? So the basic rule of thumb for determining how much you should set aside is 3 to 6 months of your entire monthly expenses. So if you have a mortgage that's worth $1,000 a month, and you have a car loan that's $500, and then you have a cell phone, let's say that's $100, what does that add up to? That's $1,600 a month that you have to have in case you lose your job or have no income. Make sense? And the reason why it's 3 to 6 months, by the way, is because when someone loses their job, realistically, how fast is it to find another job? Let's say it even takes like, 1.5 months. You don't get paid until 3 weeks later if you do find that job. Make sense? So step one, start by saving your first $1,000. I don't care how financially savvy you are. in terms of if you want to invest in this particular area, it doesn't matter to me. Let's start with this. Save your first 1,000. Next thing, increase to 3 times your monthly expenses, and then increase it to 6 times your monthly expenses. Once you have that, you just set your foundation to build your finances upon that. That makes sense? So good options, keep some funds in cashable GICs or term deposits. Use low risk products where you can access funds without penalties. Keep an account just for emergency as a separate bank without a debt card or online access. You know, a lot of people, you know, this thing right here, the reason why people use their savings is because most of the time if they do online banking, every time they log into their bank, they see their savings and then they withdraw from it. Super simple to take it from their savings to their checking account. I encourage people to, if they're saving, put it in a separate account outside of your checking. Okay. So with savings, a person can walk tall. So really, this is a really big statement that they put together, and I really want everyone to pay attention to this. A state of your savings does have a lot to do with how tall you walk. Your savings affect the way you stand, the way you walk, the tone of your voice, your physical well-being, and self-confidence. So a person without savings is always running. He or she must take the first job offered, or nearly so. She sits nervously on life's chairs because any small emergencies throws her into the hands of others. Without savings, a person must be too grateful. Okay? Gratitude is fine, but it has its place. A consistent state of gratitude is a horrible place in which to live. Okay? Always saying thank you for the thing, you know, thank you for helping me, all that stuff. Make sense? So a person with savings can walk tall. He may appraise opportunities in a relaxed way. So a lot of people, when they apply for jobs, most of the times because they need money. But when's the last time you realistically looked at, I'm applying for a job because I want to do this particular thing for the rest of my life, right? So have time for judicious estimates and not be rushed by economic necessity. A person with savings can afford to resign from her job if her principles so dictate. And for this reason, she will never need to do so. A person who can afford to quit is much more useful to his company and therefore more readily promoted. He can afford to give his company the benefit of his most candid judgments. So a person with savings can afford the wonderful privilege of being generous in family, neighborhood emergencies. He can take the level stare of any man, friend, stranger, or enemy. The ability shapes her personality and her character. The ability to save has nothing to do with the size of income. Make that very clear. Okay? Many high-income people spend it all, darting through life like minnows. But as the dean of American bankers, J.P. Morgan, once advised the young banker or broker, take waste out of your spending, you'll drive the haste out of your life. Right? So if you don't need money for college, a home, or retirement, then save for self-confidence. And with that self-esteem and peace of mind that comes from having savings and walk tall through life. So really look at this perspective, guys. When I first read this, I absolutely agreed with it because, there's a thing I talked about, what's your retirement number, how much money you have saved, and it's not necessarily an age. It's the ability to do so. Imagine have all this savings and literally you're working because you love what you do, right? You're not looking for, I need to pay this bill, I need to pay this mortgage. So who do you work hard for? Would you be willing to be disciplined in spending and live the rest of your life debt-free? Maybe it's time for you to perform plastic surgery on most of your credit cards. So literally cut it, right? Pay it off first, obviously, right? But literally cut it, right? Buy things you need, not what you want. So here's my rule of thumb, okay? This is just our thing. If we want to buy something for the very first time, we're like so into it, we did their research. Myself and Dale, most of the time we go back home, take a day to think about it, and then see if we still want it in a week from now, right? And after that, if we still want it a week from now, we're gonna wait another week, right? But no, as joking aside, just literally just wait a week, see if you actually still want that particular thing that you wanted to buy, right? So who are you going to work for every day? Your employer, the government, the bank, or yourself and your family? So who will benefit the most from your hard-earned money? So how do we increase cash flow? It's important to live with our means, but let's increase our means, right? So work a part-time job, very common sense, right? Start a part-time business. And that's why I think Table Space is amazing for that, because part-time businesses can start here. And what would an extra $1,000 a month do for you in your budget? Realistically, let's say you have a full-time job and you have a part-time business. What would an extra $1,000 a month do for your budget? Most people would say, hey, Lee, $1,000 a month can do me great things in my family, right? So understand the cash flow quadrant. So it's all cash flow equal. So this is one thing that's important. And this is in many business books and many finance books. So as an employee, you have a job. As a self-employed person, you own your job. As a business owner, so there's a big difference between self-employed and business owner, by the way. You're in a system where people work for you. And, in terms of the investment market, money works for you in that aspect. So by the way, just to make it clear, this is not better than this. Okay? It's depending on what lifestyle you want to live. But if you want to actually, be the chances of you becoming more financially independent is on this side. So time equals money, few tax advantages on this side. But if you're on this side of the quadrant, whether it's a business owner or investor, there's people's and the ideas equals money, many tax advantages. Okay? So which quadrants do you think most wealth is created? What would you say? Right? It's obviously on that side. And when we look at this, how do we increase cash flow? Tax rates of being a business owner. So again, this is relatable to everyone in Table Space who rents an office. Deduction possibilities. You can deduct square footage of your home office if you have a self-employed business. Office supplies, furniture, other equipment, softwares and subscriptions, mileage, travel, meals, entertainment, insurance premiums, retirement contributions, and telephone charges. So those are things, by the way, when I say tax breaks or tax advantages, that's a huge thing when it comes to how much you pay in tax at the end of the year. Because some people sometimes can get a big, big tax refund. So more money to invest. If you get that bigger refund, that gives you a bigger ability to save on a monthly basis. So how do we increase your cash flow in each quadrant? So number one, as an employee, you understand your finances, become your own money manager. Number two, learn and earn as a financial professional. Number three, build a business that's mission driven, bring value to many others. That's like literally the advice that we have for a lot of people. Make more money and grow your money as an investor. So would you rather work the same amount of time and earn twice as much, or earn the same working half the time? Right? So here's my closing message. Here's my closing statement. Financial independence is not a dream, it's a decision. What will you change to save more money? Realistically look at that in that perspective. How will your family feel when you accomplish your plan to become debt-free? Will you shrink your dream to fit your income, or will you increase your income to fit your dream? I'm going to spend some time actually on this. That saying where most people die at 25 and just get buried at 85? Have you guys ever heard that saying before? So when we're young, we have all these dreams and visions and goals. And usually when it hits 25 years old, most people stop thinking about what they can do and kind of settle from where they're at right now. So you have all these dreams and ambitions and goals, but then when you realistically at 25, you kind of see how much income you can make, potentially make for the rest of your life. So your dreams and goals go from here to fit your income. But what we're trying to do right now is increase your income to fit your dreams and goals when it comes to your finances. So what else did you learn that will help you increase your cash flow? So imagine a world where you can be debt-free, your kids can grow up and do the things they love to do, and instead of the money that it brings them. Could you be the person that changes your family's future for generations to come, right? So homework for today, all the things I told you guys to do, complete your remaining worksheets in the chapter. Sit down with, your financial professional to go through your personal financial strategy. Read pages, so I forgot to bring them, but we have Saving Your Future books. Basically, it's just, education on how finances work, but I'll bring them next time. So who could benefit from this education? Can you invite one more person to the next workshop on September 30th, right? And the next workshop, by the way, is, learn how to build a strong financial foundation and properly protect your family workshop too. So today was more so like an intro on how to pay off your debt, basic budgeting and expenses. The next workshop, you're gonna actually see how to take those concepts and apply it to yourself. Make sense? So that's pretty much that's it for my presentation today, guys. I just want to thank everyone for coming today. And again, this is the beginning of the steps. If you're struggling financially, make sure you take the next step and actually look for solutions for yourself. Right? Yeah, thank you, guys.